Welcome to Sharp Sharp. This is Rob Rose saying hello and welcome to our 10th episode. This is Rob from Currency. You can always reach me on rob@currencynews.co.za. And I'm joined by Zukile Majova from Scrolla.Africa. Zooks, great week to have been in the country and soaking up the joy of petrol increases.
Very interesting week, Rob. I'm seriously concerned about this petrol hike. Seriously concerned, especially diesel. A lot of people are now relying on buses, and we hear that buses, what is it, Patco has gone up 10%. They're pushing up the fares 10%. They run the biggest public transport operation in terms of buses. So you can imagine how difficult it's going to be for ordinary people just to get to work.
For sure. 18 million people take taxis every day, and taxis have raised their fares too. I mean, it seems like the Iran war just keeps on giving to South Africa.
Yeah, I was quite impressed at first with the taxi industry because this is the first time they go up. Patco has gone up twice now in 2026. And they said they wanted 30%, but they settled for 10%. That tells you. And they're trying to negotiate with the government for a subsidy, a bigger subsidy, just to keep the prices where they are. But the taxi industry has only gone up marginally, only now. We don't know how long they can hold out, but really the impact on their customers is big, But if you look at Gautrain has not gone up because they're not diesel, and they keep saying that our prices are not going to go up. So increasingly, you are going to consider Gautrain.
All right, so all of us are going to go and buy electric cars tomorrow. That's the plan. Well, before we get into the fuel prices, should we start with, I think, kind of what was a watershed event in South African politics, which was the election in Emfuleni, which does say a lot about the future of I suppose, the ANC and the Democratic Alliance. I suppose to set the scene for that, Emfuleni is in the heart of the Vaal Triangle. It covers the big industrial town of Vereeniging. Emfuleni is essentially 95%, 96% black residents, 825,000 people, of which 650,000 live in the townships. And they had a by-election last week. And the notable thing in the by-election was that the DA, the Democratic Alliance, the supposed white party, beat the ANC, which has held the ward since democracy. And that's a profound shift in politics. I mean, do you think it came as a shock to the ANC?
I think what you don't capture, Rob, are the conditions under which those black residents live. Horrible conditions. Massive pollution, air pollution, water pollution.
It's on the Vaal River, so you'd have massive pollution flowing
It's just horrible. And people have been crying out for services. You can imagine holding out for 30 years of patience. Patience is running out. And quite interestingly, in this case, Maki Tshabalala, who's 61 years old, was put in as a candidate for that ward.
For the DA.
She had lived there. People know her. They know what she has done. They know her track record in the community, and that's the thing about local government. People are going to go for people that they know, whose track record that is known, the work in the community is known. It doesn't really matter if you belong to a particular party, but you cannot beat an individual that people trust. And the classic case, this lady wiped the floor with the ANC.
61 years old, Maki Tshabalala, she was described as a DA mama. She's going to be the new ward councillor there. And she said afterwards, she was speaking about what this meant. She said that it showed that people want services. The DA will deliver those services. And she said that what you've seen is the neighbouring suburbs, the neighbouring municipalities which are run by the DA, the Mid-Vaal municipality particularly, where services have improved. And the residents of Emfuleni said, well, if this is happening next door, this is what we want. So that's a demonstration, I suppose, of the DA demonstrating good governance, and this basically causing people to vote on more than racial lines, which actually has been a feature of our post-democracy voting patterns. But in a sense, this is a watershed in that we are now not necessarily voting along race lines.
Absolutely. There's no question about it, Rob. It's a shift, not as you correctly mentioned it, that actually in the region, we're beginning to see the shift. I mean, we're only 5 months away from the election, and people are prepared to make this shift for a councillor who's only going to be there for 5 months. And quite interestingly, the DA previously only had 1%. And that was what the new leader of the DA, Jordan Hill-Lewis, was saying, that we actually had 1% in this one, and now look at what's going on. It was a close fight, though. It was
8
a close
votes.
fight.
8 votes.
They won by
separating.
8 votes, but the real commitment with the by-election, Rob, is that somebody has to come back from work, because it's midweek, it's on a Wednesday. You work the whole day, you leave work at 5, voting stations are still open, you still have to make sure that your kids are at home, everything went well, homework and all of that. You still have to cook, and you have to make a decision about whether you really want to go and vote for that person. Why should you bother? It means to make you make that decision to go to the voting station when it's cold, it's winter now, Rob. You really, really support that person. You really believe in what they can achieve. That tells you that come the local government election in November, she will retain that ward.
Well, I mean, it is nothing less than a catastrophe for the ANC. It was, like you said, much higher. I think it was 90% in 2011 ANC, and it's fallen now to 31%. And the DA, like you said, was 1%, and now it's at 32%. It is a small shift. I mean, it's like you say, it's only ahead by a marginal amount, but the significance of the DA pulling ahead is immense. I mean, Gareth van Onselen is somebody who I read quite a lot. He runs this blog now, Inside Politics. He does a lot of kind of fantastic statistics and polls on local government elections. And what he said is that Emfuleni demonstrates that somewhere along the line there's a tipping point. And it seems to be closer to 20% than 10%. But essentially the trend is clear. Profound ANC collapse amongst ANC voters, and the DA is making gradual gains. Is this the kind of thing that you think might translate to the November election?
You know what I found really interesting, Rob, obviously, that's where it's going to go. Because remember, even if the DA does not win the ward, if they contest the ward, reduce the ANC vote significantly, they still get the PR votes. And quite interestingly, another Tshabalala with a different spelling, King Saul Tshabalala, is the DA mayoral candidate there, and not necessarily a ward councillor type of person, but likely a PR type of person. I question the decision of the DA. In this particular case, I would take the lady who won a ward and make her the mayoral candidate.
I mean, King Saul Tshabalala, I've spoken to him quite a few times. I mean, he's smart, he speaks very well.
Yeah.
He's a classic DA candidate. But you're right. I think what this election shows is that you have a strong community base, and that's more important than what the ANC has done, for example, which is to try and parachute candidates in who they think might win.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you right now, Rob, you have to listen to the community, because the problem that we have, which is what's costing the ANC, is this thing of not listening to the community. You arrive with a candidate. People know that person, know he's a scallon. They know he hangs around with very bad people, etc. They have never seen him in church. They have never seen him in a funeral, consoling people. People know the track record of that person. That you just bring and enforce this person on people, they're going to reject them. And they're going to look for other candidates. So, like I say, it doesn't matter what the DA planning has been. They've got a winner. Take the winner, and elevate the winner. It's a mama, it's a lady who understands the difficulties that ladies are dealing with, the troubles of the community. She's not a young person. She wants to see change. And can you imagine what community support she's got? She belongs to a Stokvel, community society groups, etc. She goes to church. She's got a lot of people behind her.
It's really fascinating, because Jordan Hill Lewis was saying that, what this shows is that the DA can win anywhere in entirely black, entirely white, entirely coloured communities. And I think that does kind of bode well for them, coming up to the election. But I do think, the ANC, I'm surprised they've rolled over to this extent and just let this happen to themselves. And what Mama Tshabalala was saying is that she believes that in the 4 or 5 months until the election happens, the ANC will absolutely try and sabotage her and make it look as bad for her as possible, because this is an important symbol of what is happening to the ANC.
Look, it's difficult, Rob. I mean, you are the only DA candidate in a ward, and you're trying to make a difference. People expect you to make a difference, but you don't approve budgets yourself. You come to council, you ask for a new road, they outvote you, and you don't get it, and nothing happens in your ward. That's clear sabotage, But the DA has got to recognize that they've won that ward, not just Mama Tshabalala, but as the DA, and they need to demonstrate. Now you've got partnerships with the private sector. She is going to start talking to the private sector, get the power of the DA with the private sector, make a difference right in front of people. Even under the strain of being sabotaged. That's how you make a difference. The private sector is there. And funny enough, in South Africa, a lot of people in business want to see good things happening. They are always prepared to fund people who've got good initiatives like this. I think she'll win, Rob.
Do you think that this indicates, and Gareth Van Onselen talks of the tipping point, if it reaches 17, 20%, he believes that could be the point at which the DA becomes more substantial in areas, communities that they wouldn't have otherwise. Do you think that there is a chance that the DA is able to break through the racial perceptions of it being a white party?
Like we are saying, it's not exactly a perception, Rob, because if you look at the top of the DA, first of all, you go to a DA Congress. It's black, Rob. It's a massive. DA Congresses have become massive now. I checked the last one. Hey, things are different here. Even the language, the energy, everything is different on the floor, Rob.
Yeah.
And if those people don't see it at the top there over a period, DA must start having a problem. And they've got a history of developing very, very good young black potential leaders at national level, in parliament, people who have made a major difference. Lindiwe Mazibuko, she was a superstar in parliament, and as a leader of the DA, the way she worked with people, the way young black middle-class people rallied behind her, but you were able to lose that. It's a problem, Rob. And also how easy the DA is prepared to lose black leaders. Dr. Mpho Phalatse, amazing, new person, unknown in politics, a powerhouse. But you're able to let go of that. People like Musi Maimane, it doesn't matter what the differences are. And that's the other thing, Rob. In a political party, you've got to manage differences. You've got to find a way. You can't just let people go. Herman Mashaba, these people are coming to haunt you. Makashule Ghana, who now chairs the impeachment committee, is a product of the DA, a very, very good young man, been in politics for over 20 years, Rob. Now seriously experienced. These are things that the DA need to seriously take a second look when it comes to development of black leadership. So you need to see more black leaders there. You need to walk the walk, Rob.
That's been the issue for them, is that they have had black leaders, and those black leaders have left. And they're all very different reasons why they leave. But I suppose the ultimate fact that is important is they've all left. I spoke to Dr. Mpho Phalatse quite a lot about it, and it was the fact that she was the mayor of Joburg.
Yeah.
And there was a coalition that was pretty much breaking the spirit and unable to really make any breakthroughs they need in Joburg. And she just didn't stick around with the party. And in a sense, you're right. The top of the DA does look surprisingly white when you see it against the rest of the actual membership base.
Yeah. So I think Rob, people are going to start demanding to see some change. Obviously, there are leaders at the top of the DA at the moment, but it still looks white. Even if you look at mayoral candidates in various regions where the DA has got a potential to win, you still have a lot of white people. Obviously, quite interestingly, some people are coming back to the DA, like Liam Jacobs.
Yes, Liam Jacobs. Once you've crossed the floor, he's crossed the floor twice now. He left the DA, now he's coming back to the DA. Can you ever really be trusted in the party again once you decided to swap parties on a whim?
He didn't leave the DA to go to Rise Mzansi, who have more or less a similar mentality, or Bosa. He went to the Patriotic Alliance, the PA,
which is and
he said a lot of things, and he actually said, I feel at home here. If you feel at home in the PA, you definitely cannot feel at home in the DA.
Well, let's talk about another similar case of, Joburg, very similar to Emfuleni to some extent. And you have Helen Zille, who's the classic archetype of the DA, a white leader, but somebody who's very, very influential and somebody who has a lot of power of character behind her, who's bidding to win Joburg in November. What does the Emfuleni victory for the DA say about her chances there? Do you think this is a boost to the prospect of winning those 500,000 votes that she needs to become mayor?
First of all, Rob, it's increasingly becoming debatable how white Helen Zille is as a candidate. It's like Chris Pappas. How white is Chris Pappas and how Zulu is Chris Pappas. So you've got a situation like that. Chris Pappas won Umgeni municipality in KZN, and working with black communities and change that town. That town looks different now, So that's the character of Helen Zille. There is no doubt, Rob, black middle class is going to support Helen Zille. She'd never win this town without the black middle class. And that's the thing that the DA needs to realize, that at the end of the day, the tipping point for a DA victory is going to be a change in voting patterns from the black community.
I mean, to some extent, it's easy for Helen Zille to some extent. I mean, the table is set for her to do it. You have an existing mayor in Dada Marrero, or, Dodo Marrero, as some people call him, who just doesn't seem to be awake or alive.
That's gathering around.
And residents, Joburg is faced a new rash of increases this week. Water up 11%, electricity up 8.6%, refuse by 6.2%, property rates by 3.2%. Essentially, all these costs in Joburg have been increasing by far more than inflation. And you have the ANC leadership there who just doesn't seem to notice this or doesn't seem to care. And all this money is going into fund a higher workforce, more and more people who seem to do less and less. This is just absolutely the worst thing for the ANC. I mean, I wonder if they sense that. I wonder if they see that, or if it's just business as usual in the ANC and we just grind towards November and nobody's going to take any actual initiative.
Rob, the latest wage negotiations with an ANC alliance partner, South African Municipal Workers Union, SAMU, those people in those negotiations, if they were not prepared to do business as usual, they wouldn't have asked for this kind of increase, Rob. This is unbudgeted for. It's just beyond the capacity of the city. That tells you they are just, all that they think about is money. They're not doing much. And as we've always said, SAMU is the main reason why the ANC municipalities don't work. They are the union that runs municipalities, and they are the people who are not doing the job. And the ANC is not whipping them hard enough. That's the problem, Rob. So here we are in Joburg. We'll start with something like 10.3 billion that we cannot afford. Even when the ANC is gone, Helen Zille is going to inherit that mess.
It's, to some extent, as you say, I think the November election is going to be a referendum on taxes and essentially on service delivery. So that's what it is pretty much. And Joburg residents who see those kind of increases and to see how little gets done with their money will absolutely vote as a kind of a tax revolt in a sense that they haven't done this before.
The cost of living is mad, Rob. I mean, when you look at what's coming on the 1st of June in Joburg, add fuel price at the moment, which we have absolutely no control over, it's going to be very difficult. Many people have been living on the edge. So you can imagine if you're living on an edge and all the increases add up to an extra 1,000 Rand, which is 12,000 Rand a year, that's money that you probably didn't have. Where are you going to get that? It's a frustration, Rob. It's a major frustration. We even if the costs remain high, you want to see a working city. You need to be able to enjoy your weekends in the city. We have a very, very beautiful city, Rob. You want to drive around safely, park your car, take nice pictures, go to parks. You go to a park now, it's dirty, it's got vagrants, it's got people hanging around. You don't know if you're safe or not. You just cannot enjoy the city, regardless of the cost of it. You've got to enjoy the city on the weekend. And the fact that people are not enjoying the city, it means they're not pouring money into the city. You're not going to nice restaurants and all the places that are in the city, So the cost of bad governance continues. Yeah.
And you align that with the fuel prices we discussed earlier, the fact that, it creates a heavy burden on consumers. But, this week you had the fuel prices, as you mentioned, going up to a massive amount. I think it's a record for South Africans to be paying 28 Rand per litre of petrol. And that's huge. And the fact is the government didn't need to do this necessarily. What they opted to do from June is essentially reverse some of the decrease they had allowed in the fuel levy, the extra tax they added on. So they reduced the levy, the amount that they're taking back by 1.50 Rand, which essentially meant South Africans are paying a lot more for fuel. There was scope for them to keep that fuel levy relief, wasn't there? But they chose not to do it. I wonder if that's firstly bad for the economy and just bad politically. Is it a bad strategic move?
And it's seriously bad on an election year, Rob. I mean, maybe they could have sustained this to the end of the year and see how the situation is going to develop in the state of Hormuz, and they didn't. They feel emboldened that maybe this is the time to withdraw it. Don't get people used to having this cushion, because the longer people get used to it, the more difficult it's going to be to remove it. But basically, they've transferred the cost to us. It's painful. It's going to be painful at the pump.
17.5 billion rand is what it cost the government to have that fuel levy relief for a couple of months. But, you have a sense that you filter those fuel prices into the economy and you have a much greater cost of the economy than, 17.5 billion rand. I think the estimates I read is that something like 3 times that, 40-something billion rand is what it's been costing the economy, this fuel price increase. So there was definitely an argument to be made that they should have kept this there and cushioned consumers. Like Patrick from Africa Confidential said in Kenya a few weeks ago, they dropped the price by 9%, which is something that the government could have done.
I think fuel it's an easy strategy of making money, Rob. If you're gonna keep losing around 8 billion every month, you got to find ways of filling up that hole. Increasingly, it becomes a really big hole. In 6 months' time, what are we talking about here? We're talking billions of rands, and like I said, it's an easy thing. It's an easy way of making money, fuel, but broadly for all of us, for the citizenry, the cost is going to go up. Cost of food is going to go up. There are already products that we all can afford. Lots of families have given up on beef. Last year already, massive sales of pilchard, sardines, canned fish,
canned protein.
Yeah, and then there was an issue with the poultry industry, and a lot of people now moved even from chicken to canned fish. That's how difficult you got to think about the realities of what people are dealing with on a daily basis on the ground. If everything goes up, suddenly the price of vegetables go up, and no one can afford vegetables. We're going to have problems, though.
Absolutely. I mean, diesel costs are hitting farming, and the private sector is, for the first time, I think in 5 months, it actually shrunk private sector activity. And this is a reflection of what's actually happening in the wider economy. The fact they can't finance this with a higher fuel costs, which is the reality, like you say, of people's lives. And the politicians and the city officials of all these municipalities just don't seem to get this. I mean, we had, in the last couple of weeks, we had the head of finance in Joburg, Loyiso Masuku, was basically talking about how the city is doing so much to help its consumers and its citizens, which is a complete fiction. I mean, she claimed that 12.5% is what's actually happening with water. I mean, the increase for water, but actually, in reality, as News 24 wrote, quoting WaterCan, which is a civic society organization, the real cost of that is fleecing South Africans, is 65%. So you have a new demand levy on water, which is essentially to manage water supply, going up 65% rather than this fictional 12.5%. So not only are they fleecing people, they're lying about it. I mean, there has to be consequences at the polls for that.
Rob, what makes me really angry when it comes to the water is that I buy water from the city. So I've got water that I've bought, 5,000 liters of water that I cannot drink. It's dirty. It comes out of the tap dirty. Now I have to go and buy drinking water from Checkers. So I've paid Dada Morero for water, and the water is dirty. You can't cook with it. You can't use it. It's just for showering and the bathroom. That's all it is. So they're begging to provide me now with dirty water. And I've got water cuts now. It's madness, Rob. Look,
I mean, remember Panyaza Lasifi a few weeks ago saying that
I can't go to a hotel unlike Panyaza.
No, exactly. He says I can go to a hotel and shower. Sometimes, those politicians really have to hunker down, just go and check into a hotel so they can have a clean shower.
And I mean, if you look at Masuku, she creates an impression that she can be answer to cleaning Joburg. She thinks she's probably going to be the next mayoral candidate of the ANC. But she was part of the problem. As MMC of Finance, she's part of the problem. Even Dada Morero previously was MMC of Finance. Again, part of the problem. They cannot clean. We need a fixer, somebody who's just going to clean the city. Doesn't matter what color of the skin.
Well, I think that's pretty much the platform laid for Helen Zille. But just as a final point in this podcast, I think the people we know we don't want to be running our cities are the people who run SAFA, the South African Football Association. We had a situation in the last couple of days. I mean, we play our big World Cup warm-up, our first game in the World Cup on June the 11th next week. And that's a big game for us because we haven't actually been in the World Cup for 16 years. That's our time back. But yet we messed up in our preparations. We messed up getting to Mexico for the event.
A lot of people who've been watching SAFA, Rob, are actually not surprised. It's been a comedy of errors for years. You know, it's run like an ANC municipality. Well, it's run by an ANC mayoral candidate of Tabeja, that tells you. And it has been a comedy of errors for years.
So what we had in the last week is they have a warm-up game against Nicaragua, and they field 12 players on the field for part of it. Nobody seems to notice. Then they go to Mexico, and it turns out that the visas just aren't ready for the whole team. And the question is, everyone deflects blame in a moment like this, but if you don't have your visas ready and you're going to the World Cup for years, I mean, that can only be the fault of SAFA, right?
Well, you're not seeing heads rolling, Rob, and this is normal at SAFA. I know everybody wants to see Bafana win. I'm thinking that maybe if Bafana get beaten, they come back home, the fans are going to be so angry, they're going to demand a change at SAFA, and that can only be good for football.
Well, I mean, do you think that the team has no chance? I mean, we have our team. I mean, I suppose our pool effectively includes South Korea, Mexico, and the Czech Republic, and they are, Czech is 41, Bafana is about 60, Mexico is 15th, and South Korea is 25. So we are at the lowest leg where the guys expected to lose that particular pool. Any chance we can win it?
I was about to say, Rob, I don't remember at any point where I thought we could beat South Korea. Those guys, trust me, they are not easy to beat. And Czech Republic players are playing at the highest level of football across the globe. I mean, even if you don't know who they are, but the kind of football that they're playing in top leagues across the world, it's no joke. And obviously Mexico, that we played in the opening of 2010 World Cup in South Africa and drew with them. We should have beaten them. We've got no chance of beating them now. They are at home. They're prepared for this World Cup. They are convinced that they are going to win their first match against us. And as you say, number 15.
Mexico's number 15, yeah, it's much harder.
That's quite impressive. That's very impressive.
I still think there's a chance we could at least.
I don't even think there's an African team that's number 15.
Well,
that is in the top 15. That's impressive for Mexico.
Zux, I'm betting on a 1-1 draw in that game next week. Same as 2010 when we had a 1-1 draw in our opening game.
I want to see Danny Jordan and his team gone, so I'm betting on a loss.
Okay, so what that means is when they have to go home from Mexico and the US, perhaps Danny Jordan should pilot the ship of fools back to South Africa, and we can deal with it then.
Exactly.
Okay, that's it for Sharp for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. Remember to go and not vote for people who keep sewage running down the streets, and only vote for the Sharp team.
Absolutely. And looking forward to next week, I'm going to have my eye on what's going on in Parliament. Obviously, Madlanga Commission is also very interesting, wrapping up second report, second interim report given to the president. That's going to be interesting. So those are things I'm looking forward to next week.
Okay, that's Sharp for next week. Join us then.